Today we are going to reveal 2 new devil fruits, one of which is amazingly cool, the other of which is not that. We'll also be diving into some revelations from the mouth of the manga horse himself, Eiichiro Oda, as well as some huge news about the sun god Nika. Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam and this video has a lot of things in it. Unfortunately, I should say right here and now that those things are not necessarily going to be anime friendly, because we're going to go over the information given to us via issue 13 of One Piece magazine, and it has a pretty heavy focus on manga events. So if you're not keen on spoilers, look, I get that. Here's another video for you to watch. You'll enjoy it, maybe. But for everyone else, here we go. In fictional fruit news, Oda has revealed the design for Kaido's Ua no Mi Model Seiryu, which I absolutely love. Everything about it is perfect. It's covered in swirly scales and has 2 stems to mimic the horns of the eventual dragon user. It's a really great looking fruit, especially because these designs, they can be a bit hit and miss. And for a bit of a miss, here is the official design of Yamato's devil fruit, the Inu no Mi Model Okuchi no Makami. And well, it's pretty meh. It kind of reminds me of an ornament that I would find in my grandparents' house, featuring various shades of yellow, orange, and brown, which for some reason was sizzlingly hot colors way back in the 70s. To me, it looks a lot less like a devil fruit and a lot more like the sea devil stool sample. But the fact that it's so plain is actually very noteworthy, because it is by far the least detailed devil fruit we've ever seen, particularly in regards to its minimal swirls. It's just a very plump and smooth existence, devoid of all the traditional devil fruity texture. Anyway, want to know how chapter 1000 was originally supposed to end? Because I shall tell you right after we give away this gift. Because for every video during this holiday month, we are giving away a gift to a random subscriber. And today's gift is a big one, so big that man, I can't even really fit it into frame properly. Because this is a special limited edition copy of the manuscript for the very first chapter of One Piece. It's a fantastic behind the scenes look at manga production, including handwritten notes from Oda, and in general, it's just a stunning item. And if you'd like to win quite possibly the greatest thing I have ever held in my hands, then you just need to do 2 things. Firstly, subscribe or be subscribed to the channel, and secondly, leave a comment answering the following question. How has reading or watching One Piece changed your life? And that is legit it. The winner will be announced in our community section, so go ahead, do the thing, and win the even better thing. But speaking of both Chapter 1 and changes, originally Chapter 1000 was meant to end in a very familiar way. As it stands, Chapter 1000, titled Straw Hat Luffy, sees the Straw Hat Luffy in question deliver a delicious dirt banquet to Kaido, and then proudly claim, "I am Monkey D. Luffy, and I am the man who will surpass you to be king of the pirates." And that ending gave me legitimate chills. But Oda's original plans was to have Luffy's dialogue mimic something that Shanks said in Chapter 1. Quite specifically the line, "Nobody hurts a friend of mine," which in this case would have been referring to Kinemon, the vassals, and actually I suppose all of the Wano people in general. Everyone's a nice friend of Luffy. And in many ways this would have been nice because it would have been a callback to Chapter 1, and it would have shown us just how far Luffy has come with that direct contrast to Shanks. But I also think Oda definitely made the right move here. That line just doesn't have enough, oomph to be a proper ending. However, Oda did, albeit unintentionally, still create a reference to Chapter 1, which we can see with Luffy's silhouette as he is saying this line. Here, Luffy's form is almost exactly the same pose as Shanks was making when he took off his hat to give it to Luffy in Chapter 1. However, in Oda's own words, this was completely unintentional and just a very happy accident of manga production, which is really amazing because he cut his intentional reference to Chapter 1, but still ended up subconsciously drawing another. But we also have a direct comment from Oda regarding this chapter, which is going to blow a few minds. I honestly didn't have much motivation for Chapter 1000, but people around me said One Piece is approaching Chapter 1000. Then I thought, wait, am I expected to draw something special in Chapter 1000? And I want to linger on this because we may have forgotten by now because, how long? It's been almost a year. But when we started getting into those 990 numbers, the internet was absolutely ablaze with Chapter 1000 speculation. People were convinced that something awe-inspiringly special was going to happen, like say the revelation of Dr. Vegapunk, or the arrival of the Revolutionary Army on Wano, or even Scopper Gaban finally making a non-flashback appearance. The standard internet fanboy drivel. But Oda really doesn't gun for these milestone chapters. In fact, he very much loses track of numbers entirely, which we can see with his continued comment. I gradually felt pressured around chapter 980 when my editors started some celebration plans. I had difficulty trying to spice up the story just in time for chapter 1000. It was difficult since in reality, Luffy and my characters don't know they need to hype up their audience for chapter 1000. They're just acting for their own purposes. That comment translation comes from Sandman AP on Twitter, by the way, and it really only emphasizes just how invested Oda becomes in his own creation. When drawing manga, Oda does something magical, because he doesn't see it as a story. He appears to look at One Piece from the perspective of a living, breathing world, and yet has certain rules and beats to hit for the purpose of telling a story, but Oda is more than willing to just get lost in this universe, and in some cases he seems to be acting more like a historian presenting the events of this world, rather than a fictional author, I guess not a fictional author, rather than an author of fiction crafting a fanciful narrative. Which is also why One Piece is spiraled out of control in terms of length, because in many weird ways, Oda isn't in charge of what's happening here, and if he was left to his own devices, then this series would never end. And we know this because in the magazine, Oda also commented on chapter length, stating that he has a lot of difficulty trying to cram all of his ideas into a 17-page installment every week. He also added that if he was allowed to draw 30-page chapters every week, he would do it. Which, if you know anything about the manga making process, you will probably die of vicarious exhaustion just from hearing that statement. So of course Oda said that he has to cut entire scenes from each and every chapter. In fact, when you think about his lofty 30-page desires, you can assume that roughly half of his ideas either get cut or compressed from every 17-page installment of the series. With that said, Oda makes it clear that he has no regrets in doing this because it only makes the overall chapter feel stronger. It's the old adage of pressure creates diamonds. You just keep compressing and compressing until what you're left with is a beautiful gem. What baffles me most is how one man can even have 30 pages worth of ideas every week to need to go through this process of cutting and compressing, when many other manga can feel like their author struggles to fill just that basic 17 pages. Meanwhile, this magazine also graced us with one of my favorite images, and I'm gonna go ahead and say ever, because here we have an utterly stunning three-sword wielding Nami, and I feel like this very much confirms a suspicion I've had for quite some time. It may not necessarily be Zoro himself that exudes a critical massive awesome, but perhaps the effect is just filtered over anybody using three swords, because this Nami here is every bit as terrifyingly cool as any Zoro image I've ever seen. What's also fun is that Oda has designed 3 new blades for Nami to wield instead of just giving her Zoro's set. And actually, like, I suppose the blades themselves are carbon copies of one another, but the sheaths, they have really cool designs, like there's a light fluffy cloud one, a deep vibrant scattering of snow or cherry blossoms or something one, and of course most importantly of all, the third one, which looks like what happens when you make a sheath out of multiple hamburgers. But this also takes me back to issue 6 of One Piece magazine, I think it was, whatever one it was that had the image of Zoro using the Gomu Gomu no Mi, because we now have a trend happening here of Straw Hat power swaps in their crew number order. So I'm really hoping this continues, and if we do keep power hopping, then next up we should see a climate-attacked wielding Usopp, followed by a sniper extraordinaire Sanji. But not to be forgotten, the rest of the crew would then be Supreme Cook Tony Chopper, Flawless Dr. Nika Robin, Super Archaeologist Frankie, an undead cyborg Brook, a very musically inclined Jinbei, and then finally, to bring things back to the start, Fishman Karate Master Luffy. And this issue of One Piece magazine also has some alternate sketches of Three-Sword Nami, which I always love seeing. It reminds me that One Piece isn't just a perfect product right out of the box, and that even a master artist like Eiichiro Oda needs to go through an artistic process to land on the right composition. Which is stupid because all artists have to do that. I suppose it's just very easily forgotten when all you ever see is the final image. We also have some truly bizarre news regarding the sun god Nika, and this also comes courtesy of Sandman AP on Twitter, who said, in a radio live program yesterday, JP comedian Sanma said sun god Nika might be based on himself. Funnily enough, his friend Oda was listening to the radio and instantly sent him a message, Nika is not based on you. He then added, next time Nika appears, she will show his face. And I guess I just wasn't expecting something like this to come from a comedian speaking on a radio station. Now this is obviously all in jest and for good fun, but it's still pretty wild for One Piece to be so popular in Japan that the most obscure of obscure characters is being referenced on the radio for the sake of humor. I mean, I really can't imagine a sun god Nika joke going down particularly well on like Australian radio, but this does bring a lot of tantalizing promise as well, with Oda confirming that we will be exploring the sun god further down the line, and if we're seeing their face, that more than likely means a flashback, and not just any old flashback either, but a flashback of the ancient world. We're talking potentially pre-Void Century stuff here, and even though we could have maybe assumed this was going to happen, it was definitely never a safe bet, because not every mystery needs to be or should be solved, and Nika's appearance very much could have been one of them. Something that we just leave in the background to ensure the mysterious longevity of this world. But now, thanks to a Japanese comedian making a joke, as comedians tend to do, I guess, but thanks to that, we can definitely expect to see some sort of Nika flashback flashback. Now, have you ever wondered what Oda's favorite volume cover is? Probably not, but it is fascinating nonetheless. It's definitely not what I would have expected. Apparently, Oda's favorite cover in all of One Piece so far is volume 53, which personally to me is probably one of the more forgettable covers. However, it has less to do with the aesthetics and more to do with the symbology. Quite notably, the crew was separated in volume 52, so Oda really enjoys 53 because he was excited to draw a fresh adventure featuring Luffy on his own, because it reminded him of the very first volume of the series. So Oda was essentially feeling a bit nostalgic. And this makes me wonder if part of the reason for separating the crew had to do with the desire to break the standard One Piece formula and briefly allow Oda to go back to his roots, drawing an adventure about a goofy pirate lad traveling on his own and meeting various other weirdos. Probably not because it all had to lead to Marineford, but it looks like Oda had a lot more fun drawing this darker saga of the series than I think any of us realized at the time. And good lord, would you look at the clock, it's time for another Grand Line review video, because there's always more to learn, explore, and experience with this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.